Hello students, this is Zinali Shah from Saraswat International Academy. Today we will begin with the second chapter, Biological Classification. In first chapter, we have studied that classification basically is to categorize the organisms on the basis of some observable characters. In this chapter, we will study various methods adopted by various scientists to classify the organism. So first of all, the Aristotle's classification. Aristotle, he was the first, or you can say he was the earliest to attempt the scientific basis of the classification. He classified the organisms into different groups. Say for example, he classified the plants into herbs, shrubs and trees, and basically this classification is based on the size of the stem. He also divided the animals into two groups, those which possess the red blood and those that do not have the red blood. So that was the Aristotle's basis of the classification. Then the next method of classification was proposed by Linus. That system of classification proposed by Linus is called as the two kingdom classification. Now, according to Linus, he classified the organisms into two kingdoms. That two kingdoms are Plantae and Animalia. The two kingdoms given by Linus are Plantae and Animalia. But this system have certain demerits, or you can say it have certain disadvantages. So what are the disadvantages of this system? This system does not distinguish between the prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now you might have studied in lower standards what are prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are those organisms which do not have a well-defined nucleus, whereas eukaryotes are the organisms which have well-defined nucleus, as well as it will have the organelles with the membrane within the cell. This system also did not distinguish between the unicellular and multicellular organisms, as well as it also did not differentiate the photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms. So these are the certain demerits of the system of classification proposed by Linus. The most widely accepted system of classification for the organism was proposed by R.H. Whittaker, and that system of classification is called as the five kingdom classification. Now, the criteria used by Whittaker to classify the organisms were the cell structure, the thallus organization. Thallus basically is the body. So whether the body is multicellular or unicellular, that characteristic. Then the next characteristic used was the mode of nutrition, whether the organisms are autotrophs or heterotrophs, how the organisms reproduce, and finally the most important characteristic used by Whittaker is the phylogenetic relationships. Phylogenetic relationships means he also studied the evolutionary history of the organisms. Now, according to five kingdom classification, all the prokaryotic organisms were placed in a single kingdom, and that kingdom was called as the Monera. So, prokaryotes were placed in the kingdom Monera, whereas those organisms which are unicellular but are eukaryotic, they were placed in the kingdom called as the Protista. So all prokaryotes were placed in a kingdom Monera, and the unicellular eukaryotes were placed in the kingdom Protista. Now this kingdom Protista, it brought together the organisms like Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, which were earlier placed in algae within plants, both having the cell wall. So what does it mean? That Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, earlier they were placed in the kingdom plants. In plants there was a group called as algae. So they were placed there. But in the five kingdom classification, this Chlamydomonas and Chlorella are placed in the kingdom Protista, whereas Paramecium and Amoeba earlier were placed in the animal kingdom. But according to the five kingdom classification, they are placed in the kingdom Protista. So this particular system of classification, it has put the organisms together which were earlier placed in the different kingdoms. So that is regarding the criteria used by Whittaker to place the organisms into the 5 kingdoms. Now which are the 5 kingdoms according to the Whittaker's system of classification? So the 5 kingdoms of the Whittaker are, the first is the Monera, second one is the Protista, third one is the Fungi, fourth one is the Plantae, and the fifth one is the Animalia. Now the characteristics which are used by Whittaker to classify the organisms into 5 kingdoms are type of the cell wall, the nuclear membrane, the body organization, and the mode of the nutrition. So now the 5 kingdoms are Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Now according to cell type, only Moneran kingdom is a kingdom which consists of the prokaryotic organisms. See, you can see here. It is the only kingdom which possesses the prokaryotic organisms. All other kingdoms, that is from Protista to Animalia, they possess the eukaryotic cell. So difference between prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, you all know. Prokaryotic cell is a cell which do not have the well-defined nucleus, as well as the membrane-bound organelles are absent, whereas eukaryotic cell is a cell which have a well-defined nucleus, as well as it possesses the membrane-bound organelles. Now when we talk about the presence of the cell wall, so in Monerans the cell wall is non-cellular and it is made up of a polysaccharide and amino acid. Polysaccharides, they are some type of the sugars. When we talk about Protista, the cell wall may be present in some of the organisms. In fungi, the cell wall is present, but that cell wall is different from the cell wall present in the plant, and it does not contain the cellulose. In plant, the cell wall is present and it is made up of the cellulose, and in the animals, the cell wall is absent. Now, next criteria used by Whittaker to classify the organism is the nuclear membrane. Now, as I told you that except for the Monerans, all the organisms are eukaryotic. So, the nuclear membrane will be absent in the prokaryotic cell or prokaryotes, that is in the Monerans, the nuclear membrane will be absent, whereas in the remaining 4 kingdoms, that is Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, they will contain the nuclear membrane because being eukaryotic, they will have the well-defined nuclei. And when we say well-defined nuclei, it means the nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Now, what type of body organization these organisms possess? Basically, Monerans are unicellular organism and therefore their organization is cellular. Protista again are unicellular, so they have the cellular level of organization. When we talk about fungi are multicellular. There are exceptions like yeast, which is a unicellular fungi. Unicellular fungi, almost most of the fungi are multicellular. Now that cells within the body may be organized into the tissue, a loose tissue. Plantae, they have the tissues, that is they are multicellular. Now these cells are organized into tissues and tissues are organized into organs. So their body may contain tissue and most of them will also have the organs formed from the tissue. Finally, the animals. Basically animals are multicellular organisms. We know that a group of cell, it forms a tissue. So certain animals have the tissue. In certain, the group of the tissues form the organs, and organs concerned with similar functions, they form the organ system. So that is regarding the body organization. And finally, the mode of nutrition. Now, when we talk about the mode of nutrition in monarchs, then they are autotrophic. Autotrophic, we know that they can prepare their own food. Now, how can they prepare their own food? Either by using the chemical energy, that is, they may be chemosynthetic, or by using light as the source of energy, that is photosynthetic. And they also may be heterotrophic. Heterotrophic means they do not prepare their own food. They are dependent on other organisms for their food requirement. So, if they are heterotrophic, they may be saprophytic. Saprophytic, it means that they feed on dead and decay of the organisms, or they may be parasite. So, parasite are the organisms which are dependent on the host. Say for example, the host may be human beings, the host may be some plants, the host may be certain animals. So, parasitic organisms are those organisms which are dependent on the other organisms to complete their life cycle. Say for example, when we talk about monarchs, mainly here bacteria are considered. So, we know, say for example, the typhoid causing bacteria, say for example, Salmonella typhi. So, this Salmonella typhi, in order to complete its life cycle, it is dependent on the human host. So, that particular organism need to enter the human body to complete its life cycle. Now, the next group is the Protista. So, Protista, they may be autotrophic mode of nutrition. If they are autotrophic, compulsorily they are photosynthetic. That is, they use the light energy to prepare their food. And they also may be heterotrophic. Now, when we talk about fungi, fungi are purely heterotrophic. They do not contain the chlorophyll pigment. So, they do not prepare their own food. They are dependent on other organisms for their food requirement. So, fungi, they are heterotrophic. In heterotrophic, they are saprophytic or parasitic. So, what is saprophytic? It means they are dependent on the dead and decay of the organisms, and parasitic means they are dependent on the host organisms for their food requirement. Now, the next kingdom is the Plantae. Compulsorily, they are autotrophic. As they possess the chlorophyll pigment, they can prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. So, they are autotrophic organisms utilizing light energy for the source of energy. So, they are photosynthetic. And finally, the last group of organisms, that is animals, which are heterotrophic organisms because they lack the chlorophyll pigment. And as they lack the chlorophyll pigment, they cannot prepare their own food, and so they are dependent on the plants for their food requirement. They may be holozoic. Holozoic, it means they ingest the food, they take in the food, then digest that food. Finally, the digested food will be transported to the cells, and in the cells that particular food will be used. That is, they will assimilate the food. Or they also may be saprophytic, which means they feed on the dead and decay of the organisms. So, these are the 5 kingdoms proposed by Whittaker. They are Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. These kingdoms given by Whittaker, he used the different criteria to classify the organisms. Certain characteristics used by Whittaker are cell type, cell wall, nuclear membrane, body organization and mode of the nutrition. Now we will study in detail each and every kingdom proposed by Whittaker. So the first kingdom proposed by Whittaker is the kingdom Monera. So basically, which organisms are included in this kingdom? So this kingdom mainly includes the bacteria, and they are the most abundant organisms present in the universe. Say for example, if we take a handful of soil, this handful of soil will contain hundreds and thousands of bacteria. Now bacteria, are able to live in the extreme habitats like hot springs. They are also found in deserts. They are found in snow. They are found in deep oceans where very few other life forms can survive. What does it mean? They can be found in extreme habitats. These extreme habitats, in these extreme habitats, other life forms can rarely survive, but in these habitats, bacteria can survive. There are certain organisms, there are certain bacteria which live in on or they may live on the other organisms. They can live inside the other organisms or they may live on the body of the other organisms, and such bacterians are called as the parasites. Now, the bacteria are categorized into 4 groups on the basis of the shapes. So, which are the different shapes of the bacteria? So, they are grouped into the 4 categories on the basis of the shape. So, on the basis of the shape, we can divide the bacteria into the 4 groups. If they possess the spherical shape, they are called as the coccus. The plural form is called as cocci. If they possess the rod shape, then they are called as bacillus. The plural form is called as the bacilli. If they possess the comma shape, then they are called as vibrium. The plural form is vibrio. And if they possess the spiral shape, they are called as the spirillum, and the plural form is the spirilla. So, based on the shape of the bacteria, there are 4 groups of the bacteria. One is coccus with the spherical shaped bacteria, bacillus with the rod shaped bacteria, vibrium with the comma shaped bacteria, and spirillum with the spiral shaped bacteria. You can see in this diagram, these are the cocci. The shape of the bacteria is spherical. These are the bacilli. The shape of the bacteria is a rod shaped. This is the spiral bacteria. The shape is spirillum bacteria. The shape is spiral and they possess the flagella for the motility. These are the flagella which are used for the motility. And the last one is the comma shaped bacteria which are called as the vibrio. So, there are 4 shapes of the bacteria, and based into that we can say that the bacteria can be categorized into the 4 groups. Now, when we talk about the structure of the bacteria, we know that we cannot see the bacteria with the naked eyes. They are observed under the microscope. Now, basically the structure of the bacteria is very simple, but functionally or when we talk about their behavior, then their behavior is very complex. That means though their structure is simple, but their behavior is very complex. They show the extensive metabolic diversity. That is, metabolic activities taking place in them are diverse. Some of the bacteria are autotrophic, that is, they synthesize their own food from the inorganic substrate. So, as we have studied, monerans, they may be autotrophic or they may be heterotrophic. So, if they are autotrophic, it means they will prepare their own food from the inorganic material. Now, this autotrophic may be photosynthetic autotrophic or they may be chemosynthetic autotrophic. Now, what source of energy are they using to prepare their food? According to this, that category is given. If they utilize light as the source of energy to prepare their food, then they are photosynthetic autotrophic, and if they utilize chemicals to synthesize the food, then they are chemosynthetic autotrophics. But majority of the bacteria, they are heterotrophs. That is, they do not synthesize their own food but are dependent on the other organisms for the food, or they may feed the dead organic matter of the food. So, most of the bacteria, they are heterotrophic, which means they do not prepare their own food. As they do not prepare their own food, they are dependent on other organisms for their food requirements, or they may feed the dead organic matter of the other organisms as the food material. Now we will further study the classification of the Monera, how this kingdom is further classified. Now there are two categories of this kingdom. So Monera can be divided into two groups. One is eubacteria and another one is archaebacteria. Eubacteria are the true bacteria. Now these eubacteria, they may be heterotrophic bacteria, that is they cannot prepare their own food, or they may be autotrophic bacteria, that is they can prepare their own food. Autotrophic bacteria can be of two types. Chemoautotrophs, which means they utilize the chemical energy to synthesize the food. Example for this is the sulfur bacteria. Or they may be photoautotrophs, which means they utilize the light energy to prepare the food. Example is the cyanobacteria, commonly called as the blue-green algae. Now the next one is the archaebacteria. Archaebacteria are further classified into three, that is halophiles, which are found in the salty areas, thermoacidophiles, which are found in the hot springs, and methanogens, which are found in marshy areas. Marshy areas are those areas which are waterlogged areas. So you can see the archaebacteria. They are the bacteria which are able to survive in the extreme conditions. Like halophiles, they survive in the salty areas. Thermoacidophiles, they survive in the hot springs. And methanogens, which are found in the marshy areas. Now we will further study each group in detail. So first we will study the archaebacteria. So archaebacteria are those bacteria basically which are found in harsh habitats. That is, they are able to survive in extreme conditions like salty areas. If they are found in salty areas, they are halophiles. Hot springs, thermoacidophiles. Marshy areas, that are nothing but the methanogens. So archaebacteria are the bacteria which are able to survive in the extreme conditions. Now, how do archaebacteria differ from eubacteria, or you can say true bacteria? So basically the structure of the cell wall of the archaebacteria is different from the other bacteria, and basically this different cell wall structure is responsible for their survival in the extreme conditions. How are they able to survive in the extreme condition? So the reason is the different structure of their cell wall. This different cell wall structure enables the archaebacteria to survive in the extreme conditions. Methanogens. Basically these methanogens, they are found in the guts of the ruminant animals. Which are ruminant animals? The cows and buffaloes. And these methanogens, they are responsible for the production of the methane gas from the dung of these animals. Now you know that cow dung and buffalo dung, they are used in the villages for the production of the biogas. So how it is possible? Because the dung of these organisms contain methanogens, which when burned responsible for the formation of the biogas. The main biogas is the methane. So that is regarding the archaebacteria. Now the second group of the bacteria is the eubacteria. So basically most of the bacteria found in the universe are the eubacteria. So there are thousands of different eubacteria which are commonly called as the true bacteria. So these true bacteria, they have a rigid cell wall. So they will have a proper cell wall, and if motile, they will possess the flagellum. The plural form of the flagellum is the flagella. Now these eubacteria, they may be autotrophs, that is photosynthetic and chemosynthetic, or they also may be heterotrophs. Most of the eubacteria are heterotroph, few of them are the autotrophs. So first of all, we will deal with the autotrophs, and in autotrophs also the first autotrophs are photosynthetic autotrophs. So as I told you, photosynthetic autotrophs are the organisms which utilize the light energy. Basically autotrophs, we know that they are the organisms which prepare their own food, and photosynthetic autotrophs utilize the light energy to prepare their food. So mainly the photosynthetic autotrophs are cyanobacteria, and they are commonly referred to as the blue-green algae. Now this cyanobacteria, they have a pigment called as the chlorophyll A, and this chlorophyll A is similar to the pigment which is found in the green plants. We know that green plants contain chlorophyll pigments, and this chlorophyll enables the plants to trap the light energy and prepare the food. Same way, the cyanobacteria also possess chlorophyll A pigment, and then using the light energy they prepare their own food. So as they have the chlorophyll A pigment, they are photosynthetic autotrophs. Now this cyanobacteria, they are unicellular. Now this unicellular form, they may be colonial or filamentous. That is, they may occur in the colonies or they may be found in the filamentous form. They may be found in marine water or they may be in the terrestrial region also. So cyanobacteria, they are unicellular, colonial, that is they occur in colonies or you can say in group, or they may also occur in the filamentous form. They may be found in marine water or they may be found in the terrestrial region. Now, if they are colonial, then these colonies are surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. That colony, complete cluster of the cyanobacteria will be covered by a sheet made up of the gelatin. Okay. Now, basically this cyanobacteria, they form the blooms in the polluted water body. What does it mean? In the polluted water bodies, these cyanobacteria, they undergo rapid multiplication and they will entirely cover that particular water body. So they form the blooms in the polluted water body, which means they rapidly multiply, they rapidly increase in number in the polluted water. Now, some of the photosynthetic autotrophs, they can fix the nitrogen. We know that nitrogen is very important component for the living organisms. But no living organisms basically can directly utilize the nitrogen. This nitrogen first of all needs to be fixed. That is, it needs to be converted into the salts of the nitrogen, which later will be used by the organisms. So there are few bacteria which can absorb the atmospheric nitrogen and convert that nitrogen into the salts of nitrogen. So these photosynthetic autotrophs like nostoc and Anabaena, they can fix the atmospheric nitrogen. They can absorb the atmospheric nitrogen and convert that nitrogen into the salts of nitrogen, which later are used by the plants, and from plants that nitrogen moves into the animals. So this photosynthetic autotrophs, it fixes the atmospheric nitrogen. Now how it fixes, how it absorbs the nitrogen? So they have a particular cells, and that cells are called as the heterocyst. Heterocyst cells are the specialized cells which can fix the atmospheric nitrogen. The examples are nostoc and Anabaena. We will see the diagram of a blue-green algae, that is a nostoc. So here you can see that this is a heterocyst which is responsible for nitrogenous fixation, and see this is a colony of the, these are many colonies of, these are basically, this complete structure is nothing but these are the cells of the nostoc which occur in group, and the outer blue colored structure is the mucilaginous, or you can say gelatinous sheath, which protects this particular organisms. So that is regarding the photosynthetic autotrophs. Now next one is the chemosynthetic autotrophs. I told you what are chemosynthetic autotrophs. So before chemosynthetic, what are autotrophs? They are the organisms which can prepare their own food. Now to prepare the food, they require the energy. So photosynthetic autotrophs obtain the light energy, or they use the light energy to prepare their food. The chemosynthetic autotrophs. So what are they? So they are the bacteria which oxidize the inorganic substances like nitrates, nitrites and ammonia and use the release energy for their ATP production. So basically they will oxidize the inorganic substances, and during oxidation whatever energy will be released, that energy released will be used to prepare the food. And as they use the inorganic substrates, these organisms play the very important role in the recycling of the nutrients like phosphorus, iron, nitrogen and sulfur. They play the very important role in recycling of the nutrients. So that was regarding the photosynthetic organisms, photosynthetic eubacteria. But majority of the bacteria, they are heterotrophic. So that is heterotrophic bacteria. So they are the most abundant bacteria found in nature. The majority of them are decomposers. Decomposers means they feed on dead and decay of the organisms. These bacteria have impact on the human affairs. That is, they play the very important role when we talk about the human beings. Like, they are helpful in making the curd from milk. Whatever antibiotics we take, they are mainly made up of the bacteria. They play the role in the nitrogen fixation. Example, the legume roots. We know that the leguminous plant have the root nodules, and these root nodules contain rhizobium bacteria, and this rhizobium bacteria absorbs the atmospheric nitrogen, converts the nitrogen into the salts of nitrogen, and these salts of nitrogen will be later taken by the plants. So this is how these bacteria are harmful. But not only this, this is how these bacteria are useful. That is, they are useful to prepare the curd from milk. They are used in the preparation of antibiotics. They are used in nitrogen fixation. There are many other processes where the bacteria are used. But some of the bacteria are pathogenic. That is, they cause the damage to the organisms. They cause the diseases in the organisms. So, some bacteria are pathogenic, which cause the damage to the human beings. They cause the damage to the crops. They cause the damage to the farm animals as well as to the pets. Certain diseases caused by the bacteria are cholera, typhoid, tetanus, citrus canker. This citrus canker occurs in the plants. So these are the well-known diseases caused by the various bacteria. So we can say that bacteria have important impact on human affairs. Some bacteria are useful to the organisms or to human beings, and some bacteria are harmful to the human beings. Now, how the bacteria reproduces. So reproduction in the bacteria. Now, bacteria can undergo sexual reproduction as well as they can undergo asexual reproduction. Mainly they will reproduce by the asexual reproduction, and the most important method of asexual reproduction is a fission. Fission means to break. So here you can see this is a dividing bacteria. One bacterial cell, it is divided into the two cells. That is called as the fission. If the conditions is unfavorable, they may also reproduce by the spore formation. They will reproduce by the spores. Now, some bacteria, they opt for the sexual mode of reproduction. It is not purely a sexual form, but it is a sort of sexual reproduction. Here, the DNA transfer takes place from one bacterium to the other bacterium. Basically, this method is called as the conjugation. This method of sexual reproduction in the bacteria is called as a conjugation, where there will be the transfer of DNA from one bacteria to the other bacteria. So this is how the bacteria reproduces. And lastly, the last thing here, we will deal with the mycoplasma. So mycoplasma are the smallest known organisms which lack the cell wall. So they are the organisms which lack the cell wall. They are the smallest living cells known, and they can survive without the oxygen. Some of the mycoplasma, they are pathogenic to the animals as well as to the plants. That is, they can cause the diseases in plants as well as the animals. So this is the end of our lecture. Here today we have studied the different systems of classification, and also we have studied the first kingdom according to the 5 kingdom classification, that is Monera, in detail. Clear, students? So next the lecture we will deal with the other kingdoms given by Whittaker.